Chapter 12, concerning the social dynamics of a dining table and an unexpected confirmation.
Watson, Table 63.
The head waiter's Croatian accent gave her surname an unexpected lilt.
Your dining companions are already here.
Carrie followed him through the maze of tables, her mind still half caught in the library's quiet alcove. That moment with Crispin, the unexpected vulnerability, the shared panic over the fallen book, the warmth of his hand over hers. It had left her unsettled in a way that felt dangerous. Would she run into him again? Perhaps assigned to the same table? The Britannia restaurant sprawled over two decks like a gilded theatre, crystal chandeliers spilling a soft, buttery light over tables dressed in crisp white linen. The gentle roll of the ship, now crossing Bass Strait, made the cutlery sing softly against china. Three faces turned toward her. A couple in their 60s who'd colour-coordinated their outfits, navy blazer for him, navy dress with pearls for her, and a woman about Carrie's age, buttering a bread roll with determination.
You must be Carrielle.
The woman in navy extended a manicured hand, her accent polished Australian with private school edges.
We wondered who our fourth would be. I'm Elspeth Allcroft, and this is my husband Gideon.
Carrie, she corrected gently, settling into her chair. And you are? The younger woman glanced up from her bread.
Thea Vance. First timer on a literary cruise like you, I'm guessing.
How did you know?
You're still looking around like it might disappear.
Thea's slight smile didn't quite reach her mouth. It was all in her eyes, a quick flicker of shared kinship.
The Allcrofts here are old hands. They've done, what is it now, 6 literary cruises.
7.
Gideon unfolded his napkin with the precision of ritual.
Though the last one to New York barely counted, rough seas the entire way, and half the authors were too seasick to present.
That was the year we discovered Dramamine and gin don't mix.
A mischievous glint appeared in Elspeth's eyes.
Though Gideon tried his best to prove otherwise.
The waiter materialized beside them.
Can I get you something to drink?
Gideon scanned the wine list with expert eyes.
Let's have a bottle of the Barossa Shiraz, the Torbreck, if you have it.
Excellent choice, sir.
Gideon pulled off his reading glasses and tucked them away in an inside pocket.
Anyone joining me? Can't drink a whole bottle myself. Well, I could, but Elspeth would have words.
I'll have a glass, Carrie said. Thanks,
Make that 2.
Elspeth added.
Just water for me.
Thea folded her napkin. As the waiter glided away, Elspeth leaned forward.
So where were you last night? We didn't see you at dinner.
Buffet. Carrie found herself relaxing slightly, grateful for the mundane conversation after the intensity of the library. Wanted to grab a quick bite so I could get a decent seat for the opening session in the Royal Court Theatre.
Smart thinking.
Gideon nodded approvingly.
We managed to snag excellent seats for Sandy's talk this morning. 3rd row centre. Absolutely brilliant, as always.
You got into McCall Smith? Carrie couldn't mask her envy. I was turned away. Fire regulations.
Oh, what a shame.
Elspeth touched her pearls sympathetically.
He was fabulous. That story about the Melbourne cafe and the dinner party disaster, Gideon was in tears.
I was not in tears. I had something in my eye.
You had laughter in your eye, darling.
Elspeth patted his hand.
We saw that Historian was on at the same time. Shrike? But honestly, the description sounded deadly dull. Primary sources and responsibility to the record. Against Sandy McCall Smith. No contest.
I went to Shrike's talk.
Thea set down her butter knife carefully.
Couldn't get anywhere near McCall Smith either. It was interesting.
The word caught Carrie's attention. Not boring or academic, but interesting. And something in Thea's tone made Carrie lean forward. Had she seen what happened? Had she witnessed Carrie's question and Crispin's disastrous, shambling answer? The waiter returned, presenting the bottle with ceremony. Gideon swirled, sniffed, and sipped with the concentration of a conductor before a symphony.
That's excellent.
He nodded, and the waiter filled their glasses with a flourish.
Interesting good or interesting awful?
Gideon clinked the bottle against Carrie's glass as he topped her up.
Both.
Thea lifted her water glass.
He was going on about facts and evidence. Very dry, very academic. But then someone asked him this extraordinary question from the back, about whether the ghosts he writes about would be disappointed in him for not living with passion.
Thea paused, her cutlery suspended midair, and looked directly at Carrie.
Wait, that was you, wasn't it? The photographer with the blonde ponytail?
A flush of heat rose in Carrie's face. So she'd been seen. The confrontation that had seemed so private in the moment, and the conversation in the library even more so, had witnesses. Guilty, she managed, the words steadier than her suddenly quickened pulse.
Bloody brilliant.
Thea's voice held genuine admiration.
You should have seen his face. Like someone had suddenly switched on a light he didn't know existed.
Sounds like we missed the real drama.
Elspeth studied Carrie with new interest.
What made you ask such a thing?
Carrie took a measured sip of her wine. How could she explain what had driven her to ask that question when her own understanding of it had shifted so dramatically in the library? He was talking about a passionate Victorian photographer in such clinical terms, she said carefully, reducing her images to evidence and facts. In that public setting, at least, he was missing what mattered about them.
Cameron.
Gideon asked. Letitia Cameron, Victorian photographer. I wrote my dissertation on her.
Ah, so he was trampling on your territory.
Elspeth gave a sharp, knowing nod.
No wonder you went for the jugular.
I didn't mean to go for any jugular, Carrie thought, but she had. And hours later, she'd seen the aftermath. A man utterly disarmed, caught with his defences down, clutching a first edition Jane Austen with the reverence of someone who truly adored it.
Have you seen tonight's program?
Thea pulled the folded sheet from her bag.
Speaking of going for the jugular.
What's on?
Gideon asked, leaning over.
Battle of the Historians. 8:30 in the Royal Court Theatre.
Thea read aloud.
A lively discussion between Maeve Penhaligon and Crispin Shrike on bringing history to life in fiction, moderated by Festival Chair Nick Mackenzie.
Oh my God.
Elspeth's hand went to her pearls.
After this morning, that's going to be explosive.
Maeve will eat him alive.
Gideon said with relish.
She's all passion and immersion. He's all facts and footnotes.
The confident pronouncement sent an unexpected pang through Carrie. After seeing Crispin's fingers tremble over that antique binding, hearing the stammer in his voice as he lost all his academic polish, she wasn't so sure. Which version would show up tonight? The controlled, factual academic? Or the flustered, passionate reader who'd admitted his cowardice to her not once, but twice? Actually, I saw him during the sail away. The memory bobbed to the surface, and with it, a fresh layer of complexity. Up on the Princess Grill deck with champagne. Should have known then what I was dealing with.
Oh, that's where they put all the writers.
Elspeth waved dismissively.
Part of the deal. They get tables in the Princess Grill so they can actually eat their meals without being pestered. Can you imagine trying to cut your lamb while someone's shoving a book at you to sign? Or wanting selfies between courses?
Really?
Oh yes. We were on a crossing once where some poor romance novelist tried eating in the Britannia. She lasted one night before begging to be moved. Apparently, she signed 17 books before her main course went cold.
So he wasn't choosing exclusivity. It was imposed on him. Protection. Quarantine. The thought shifted her perception again. That small, intimate library alcove, had it been a rare moment of freedom for him? A brief shore excursion into the real world, away from the careful management of his public persona? The waiter returned, and they ordered salmon for Carrie, lamb for the Allcrofts, vegetarian lasagna for Thea. As he left, a new understanding began to form in Carrie's mind. Crispin may not be the pompous academic she'd challenged, nor the passionate reader she'd caught unguarded. He was a man living in compartments, a carefully managed public face and a private self that he occasionally revealed.
So,
Elspeth continued.
tell us about your friend, the writer who's joining tomorrow.
Lucy White. She writes the Clock Dock Mysteries. Gideon's face transformed.
Lucy White? Good heavens, Elspeth devours those books.
Guilty as charged.
Elspeth laughed.
I read the latest one at our place in Bowral. The last minute, wasn't it? That twist with the grandfather clock was absolutely brilliant.
I'll tell her you said so. Carrie pulled out her phone. She just messaged me, actually. First flight out of Sydney tomorrow. Should be at the ship by 9.
What happened to her?
Thea asked. Cracked ribs. Fell down her stairs the morning we were meant to board, carrying a box of books.
The perils of being a writer.
Gideon shook his head.
All that sitting makes the bones brittle. I keep telling Elspeth we should take up tennis.
You keep telling me lots of things. I keep ignoring them. It's worked for 40 years.
Their starters arrived mid-laugh. Prawns for the Allcrofts, butternut soup for Thea, carpaccio that Carrie barely tasted, her mind still turning over the Princess Grill revelation and the unexpected duality of Crispin Shrike. The restaurant hummed with conversation, several hundred Australians refining their cruise personas over wine and seafood.
What are your plans for Hobart?
Thea asked, redirecting the conversation. I've booked the Port Arthur tour. Carrie forced herself back to the present. Full day, out to the convict ruins. Should be great for photographs with all that crumbling Gothic architecture against the landscape.
More ghosts?
Thea observed wryly, and Carrie caught her eye. They shared a moment of understanding that excluded the more conventional Allcrofts.
We did that years ago.
Gideon said.
Haunting place. Beautiful and terrible at the same time.
Like most of Australian history?
Elspeth pivoted smoothly.
Oh, speaking of dressing up, your friend will love the formal night on Saturday.
She lives for that stuff, Carrie agreed. I brought a dress, probably not as spectacular as whatever Lucy's bringing.
Gideon will be wrestling with his cufflinks and complaining about bow ties.
Bow ties are an instrument of torture invented by someone who hated men.
Gideon refilled their wine glasses.
But I suffer for tradition.
So are we all going to this battle tonight?
Thea asked, tapping the corner of the program on the table.
Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Elspeth said immediately.
Not after what you've told us about this morning.
It could be a bloodbath.
Gideon said with barely concealed glee.
Maeve's approach is completely antithetical to his. She believes in feeling her way into history, living it from the inside out.
And he... Carrie hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't betray her conflicting impressions. In public, at least, he takes a more clinical approach, observing from a distance.
Well, after your question this morning,
Thea said.
he might not have that luxury anymore.
The conversation flowed through their mains. Lamb for the Allcrofts, perfectly cooked salmon for Carrie, and what Thea said was a surprisingly good lasagna. But the pleasant chatter about Tasmanian attractions and cruise ship etiquette began to feel distant, a hum of background noise beneath the growing tension of what the night held. Tonight, Crispin would be on stage again, this time facing someone who embodied everything he'd argued against. Would he be the man from the lecture hall? Or the man from the library?
Have you read any of Maeve's books?
Elspeth asked, drawing Carrie back to the conversation. A few, Carrie said. She makes you feel like you're there in the moment. You can smell the sweat, taste the fear.
Exactly what Shrike would call contamination.
Gideon said, signing the wine chit with a flourish.
This should be fascinating.
Poor man.
Elspeth said, though her tone suggested more anticipation than sympathy.
First, Carrie dismantles him this morning. Now Maeve tonight.
He needs dismantling.
Thea said firmly.
All that academic armour. Someone needs to remind him that history is made by people with hearts, not just dates and documents.
Carrie thought of his face when he'd admitted his cowardice in the library, that moment when the armour had cracked. Would he rebuild it for tonight? Or would her question have changed something fundamental?
We should get there early.
Gideon said, checking his watch.
After this morning's drama, everyone will want to see this. How about we skip dessert? If we're early enough, we can grab one of the private boxes.
Good idea.
Elspeth agreed.
Fill up your glasses, everybody.
They rose together, a small cohort united by curiosity and the promise of intellectual combat. As they walked toward the theatre, Carrie found herself both dreading and desperately wanting to see Crispin again. Would he look for her in the audience? Would he remember their connection when Maeve challenged him?
This is going to be absolutely delicious,
Elspeth murmured as they joined the stream of people heading to the Royal Court Theatre. The crowd was growing. The morning's drama had already become ship-wide currency, passed between tables and across deck chairs in hushed, excited whispers. Carrie heard fragments of conversation.
Completely destroyed him with one question.
Heard he couldn't speak for a full minute.
Maeve will finish what that photographer started.
That photographer. She was already becoming a story, a bit player in the larger drama. But she knew something the gossips didn't. The look in Crispin's eyes when he'd answered her. That hadn't been performance or calculation. That had been real. Or had it?
Come on,
Thea said, taking her arm.
let's see how round 2 goes.
They climbed up to the second level.
Look,
Elspeth whispered.
there's one box free.
Carrie settled into a seat, hyper-aware of her empty hands, wishing desperately for her camera. She wanted to capture this, the before, the anticipation, the way the entire ship seemed to be holding its breath. Because somewhere backstage, Crispin Shrike was preparing to defend his position against someone who believed everything he'd argued against. And here, in this crowded theatre, Carrie sat with her heart hammering, knowing she'd lit the fuse that morning. The question was no longer about his lecture or even about his beliefs. The question was, which Crispin would walk onto that stage tonight?